The new Office spin-off series just dropped on Peacock, and I gotta say, I don't think any of us should be particularly surprised here. This is no Office. It's not even clearly as good as the original series, and I think a lot of us knew that was going to happen. They weren't going to make those hilarious jokes, commenting on really inappropriate stuff, just because, nowadays, everybody's so shallow, they're so soft, they just can't take that kind of humor anymore. And I'm a big fan of the original show. I actually went to an Office convention a few years ago, and I had a great time meeting a lot of big actors, and I know back then they weren't talking about this new series, and I'm glad they didn't mention it because honestly, it's a bit of a disgrace. And the biggest problem with it is it's modern. It's made for a modern audience, and it's a modern cubicle that we're all stuck in during the show. Now, there are some positive elements going for it, but today we're mostly going to be talking about what's wrong with The Paper, the newest Office spin-off series. Before I get into it though, I'd greatly appreciate it if you just took the time, just one quick second, to like the video and subscribe to the channel. All of your support is really appreciated, and it goes a long way to making sure more people get to see the content. So thank you very much for doing so. Now, trust me, I don't want a copy of The Office. That's not something, we don't need to see a sequel. We don't need to see a continuation of that story. It ran its course. Once Andy got in as manager, everybody unanimously agrees it went downhill hard. Now, this is the same universe, oddly enough. This takes place 12 years after, so let me set the groundwork for you briefly. So during this story, Dunder Mifflin is no more. It was purchased by Enervate in 2019, a company that sells all sorts of paper product in the Toledo, Ohio area. One of its business properties, the Toledo Truth Teller, the local newspaper, is the central focus of the story. Daylighting as a disgustingly modern office space, the team is introduced to a new editor-in-chief, General Hux, hereby known as Ned Samson, who aims to fix this broken paper one step at a time. Standing erect as an insanely awkward fish out of water, the series follows his quest to gain influence in the office amongst a group of incompetent millennials who wouldn't know hard work if it smacked them in the face. The premise isn't terrible, it sounds interesting, right? So what's the problem with the series? Well, the main issue is that it's a charisma black hole. There's a vacuum here. The Office, it had titular characters that had so much personality that the entire ensemble cast revolved around them. Michael Scott, clearly, he ran the show. He was the absolutely bold, insane, wild personality that just tore the Office apart. Same for Dwight, he complimented him very well, yet at the same time butting heads, offering a different kind of energy. This series has nobody like that, and I'm going to get to one of the characters that they try desperately hard to make the new Michael later, so just stay tuned for that. None of these main characters particularly stand out against one another. Everybody's just dry, humorless, witless, and it's unfortunately just a great example of a modern Office in the 2020s. It's not that exciting. And none of these characters have intriguing personalities like the original show, and I don't want them to be exactly like that, but we gotta have standout character here. That's the whole point of this series. That's the whole point of this documentary crew coming into an office space to learn more about the crazy people that work there. Let's just go over a few of these characters. The main character, General Hux, Ned Samson. He's definitely the best of the lot. He's kind of the normal, awkward dude that clumsily stumbles around into success. Nothing really stands out particularly captivating about his character. He's awkward. That's it. He's awkward, he's kind of funny, silly. He's like the only one that really has any sort of real competence to him. Everyone else is pretty incompetent. The only other character that's kind of equally competent is this girl Mare, or Marie, I don't really remember. It's one of those two names. It's spelled super weird. She's competent, she's stoic. There's really not much going for her. I guess what's exciting about her character is she used to be a military reporter, on the field, so that's interesting, I guess. But she's real stoic, she's dry, she's kind of the new Jim here. Not much going for her. I guess what's exciting is, there might be a developing romance between Ned Samson and her character. How exciting, of course. But, nothing particularly interesting there. And then you have Esmeralda. She is the new Michael Scott. They try, at least. They try to make her this new bombastic, vivid, wild personality that's able to steal the show and tear things up in the office. But at the end of the day, you know, she kind of plays one of these stereotypical single moms who's wild, obnoxious, and just kind of likes butting heads for the fun of it. That's her character, and, you know, honestly, at the end of the day, she's strictly just annoying. Then when we're talking about more of the ensemble cast, there's a character named Detrick Moore. Not very much going for him. You know, he's kind of the cocky salesman-esque character. Kind of plays that in the stereotypical fashion where they're super self-righteous, egotistical. He's also a simp. He's a bit of a simp, so a little hard watching that. I guess that's part of the fun they want you to enjoy. You know, trying to get into the cringe-inducing material. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's an unimpressive character. He's uninterested in his work, and he's just kind of like, bleh, just getting through the day every single moment. Then another character is Adalola Olafin. Quite a name. She is a classic example of a modern Gen Z millennial person that is completely unintrigued, uninterested, and really just kind of schlep through the day. And she's emotionally detached. And, you know, she thinks she's better than everybody. That's the sense I get from her right off the bat. Might be a little different, I don't know. Not very exciting. And then last up, you get the new Kevin, Adam Cooper. He plays kind of the dumb, the slow character, and this time he might actually have an issue. So I don't exactly know if they're like hinting at that, but, you know, people are still picking on him. So, alright Peacock, what are you doing here? Another big issue with this series is that it's missing a key personality to run the show. Like I said earlier, you know, Michael Scott, it wasn't just him. I mean, there was like 3 big ones, and they each had their time to shine. It just doesn't seem like there's any big personalities that are guiding this series that can give it the kind of pomp and elevate the energy to a degree where you're intrigued by what's going on around it. You need a character to set up the setting, to create an atmosphere, to establish a tone for us to enjoy as an audience, for us to get enraptured and engulfed in that show. Because The Office, I think, you know, that's one thing that's kind of a silent nod that we all like kind of respect about it, is that it's very atmospheric in the fashion that you get sucked right in. It's immersive. You can't help but to find yourself in The Office. It's probably the #1 most casually watched series of all time, right? I don't think there's been a point in time where anybody has just not had The Office in the background as the chill show, you know? And I don't think this series has the chance to do that because it just doesn't immerse you, and that doesn't happen because you don't have a main character creating that atmosphere. And a lot of these characters, they're kind of like late Gen Z, early millennial, so I don't exactly know where to put them, but, you know, what's not exactly completely obvious is there's a decent amount of political messaging here. Sometimes they put it right in your face and they joke about it and they think it's funny, but it's really not. It's just literally uncomfortable and not in the good way. Or they just subtly put it in the background. I noticed quite a few times where they did that. And it just takes you out of it. You don't want to watch a show to get upset by it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I guess it depends if that kind of stuff annoys you or not. But there were some moments when it was like, okay, come on, buddy. I'm trying to enjoy myself here. I want to have a good time watching this. Why are you doing this? And, you know, back when we look at The Office, they were personified by their time, you know, but their time was so much different than ours. You know, our modern age is driven by absent-mindedness, a low attention span, self-obsession, and ego. And that's what a lot of these characters are embracing within themselves as characters. And, you know, I don't think in the older series, it wasn't really that apparent because it was a different time. Everyone, that wasn't the forefront of a character's personality. But I think in modern time, a lot of people, unfortunately younger people, have adopted that as sort of their personality, who they are as a person. And that's what the show kind of like subtly nods to with all of these characters. They all kind of fit that unfortunate kind of stereotype narrative of young people within that age range, that they are those things. And they kind of are in the series, which is a real shame. And nobody really wants to see that either. And lastly, this series is burdened by cringe that it's really not intending for. You know, there's a lot of times here where it's kind of obvious that the creators of this series, who are the original creators of The Office, they came back for this, there's some obvious attempts to be cringy here. And it works, not even in a very enjoyable fashion. It's sometimes funny, sometimes it's good. It's nowhere near the levels it used to be. But a lot of the cringe here lies in the background, which just kind of happens around the main story. And it's not what they're expecting. It's not what they're pushing. They want us to feel this way about this topic, right? But I don't think the creators were really considering what was also happening around it as well, and how a lot of this stuff really won't sit well with a lot of people. And a lot of this just kind of comes down to the characters. The characters are just not that great. They're really not captivating or intriguing enough to attach to be likable, and to root for, or to invest your time in. That's where it always comes down to, right? And the cringe lies in the series' attempts to make these characters a little more likable, and it also especially lies in the series' attempts to make things funny when they are not funny, because so much of the time a lot of these jokes just don't land. And I think in the original series, it was just popping every time. That's why we're still talking about this, because the show doesn't really want to take risks. And when it does, it's really just kind of the opposite side of the aisle of what The Office used to do. And I think it'll serve mostly to just piss people off here. So I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys have to think about the paper. Is this something you're going to end up watching? I know I was definitely curious about this. I went to an Office convention a few years ago in Navy Pier, Chicago. I had a great time. I got to meet a lot of great actors. I met Dwight, I met Toby, I met Stanley, who literally is a grump. He's no fun. I met Kevin. He was cool. I had a great time talking to Kevin. I met the Senator. He was hilarious. I met Hide, the warehouse man. It's a lot of good time. So I loved the original show. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's not perfect, but this show, I'm really interested in seeing where it goes. I don't think we should totally write it off yet, but, it's not a very promising introduction, and it's already been renewed for another season, so I guess we'll see. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think this show had any chance of succeeding? Do you think it will? Do you think this is something that, people are going to attach to and fall in love with? There's potential here, but I don't know. It's too early to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you liked what I had to say today. I greatly appreciate all your support, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.